Hello, everyone. Welcome to Press TV's Face to Face. I'm Marzieh Hashemi. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm very pleased to be with the Foreign Minister of Pakistan today, Shah Mahmood Qureshi. It is a pleasure being with you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well, you're here. You were here for the conference and dealing with Afghanistan. Hopefully that was effective. I want to look at Afghanistan in general because there have been reports recently about the U.S. nearing a formal agreement with Pakistan for use of airspace to conduct military and intelligence operations in Afghanistan. Can you confirm that?
There was a report. We looked at it and we denied it. There is no such understanding. Yes, we've been cooperating with each other on regional security, on counterterrorism cooperation. That's been going on for years, but there is no such understanding.
Is it a possibility that it may be reversed later on, that Pakistan is reconsidering it, or is it firmly not going to be allowed?
Well, it's not just Pakistan involved. You see, they would need permission of Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And they will have to engage with the Afghan authorities. Let them engage with the Afghan authorities and let's see what they have to say. Pakistan will judge things as the Afghan authorities take a decision because it's their sovereignty that will be impacted.
How do you see the resurgence of Daesh and Daesh terrorists in Afghanistan in general?
It is a concern. It is a concern. It was a concern, and it is a concern. Unfortunately, the transition that took place in Afghanistan wasn't as smooth as it should have been. Well, thankfully, there was no bloodshed, and thankfully, there's no civil war there. You know, we're happy about that. But since there was confusion, the people who were governing Afghanistan packed and left and fled. So in that period of transition, Daesh was emboldened, and you saw some recent attacks on, in Kunduz, in Kandahar, where innocent lives were lost, mosques were attacked. So there is a concern, and that is why one of the reasons that we Pakistan initiated this process of meeting of the immediate neighbors. You know, the first meeting took place on the 8th and the second meeting took place on the 27th of October in Tehran. The idea was to collectively look at the challenges. And one of the challenge is terrorism, international terrorist organizations, and Daesh is one of them. We do not want their footprint to increase in Afghanistan or in the region. So what we need is a collected, unified, coordinated approach to deal with such terrorist elements and entities.
How much of would you attribute the botched U.S. exit to a lot of this insecurity in dealing with, for example, Daesh?
Well, the security situation was deteriorating. As you saw Ashraf Ghani's government losing control, their threat was confined just to a few urban areas. And that was an advantage to organizations like Daesh because they were completely ineffective. So that also contributed to their increased footprint. And then the sudden withdrawal. A decision to withdraw had already been taken, and I think there was a bipartisan consensus within the United States, whether it was the Trump administration, and when the Biden administration came in, they also reviewed the whole situation and came to the same conclusion that they have to leave.
But why so haphazardly?
That is exactly what we were saying. Pakistan was advocating consistently withdraw, but do it in an orderly fashion, and that will help stabilize things in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, the way Ashraf Ghani and his entire team, the way they capitulated and left, that created such a, I would say, uncertainty that elements like such took advantage of. And you saw what happened at the airport, where innocent lives were affected. So, yes, that sudden withdrawal contributed to the confusion.
Pakistan, as a key regional player that has leverage over the Taliban, how important is it for Pakistan for there to be an inclusive government in Kabul?
Let me be honest with you. Our leverage over the Taliban is often exaggerated. Mm-hmm. They're very independent-minded people. They're very resilient, and you've seen how they withstood 2 decades of external pressure.
Right.
They have a mind of their own, but yes, they recognize that Pakistan has a more pragmatic approach, a more realistic approach, an approach which is in sync with ground realities. So we can talk to them, we can engage them, and we have. And the world recognizes that. The fact that we convince them in their own interest, in Afghanistan's interest, to come to the negotiating table. And they did. And you saw the Taliban-US agreement in Doha. Pakistan facilitated that. Pakistan is telling them, I was in Kabul on the 21st of October, mm-hmm. and in my meetings with the leadership over there, I advocated an inclusive approach. Why did I do that? One, I recognize that Afghanistan is a multi-ethnic society. And secondly, Afghanistan needs national reconciliation. Mm-hmm. If we want to achieve our objective of peace and stability in Afghanistan, there has to be a healing, and they can only come about through a national reconciliation. An inclusive approach will facilitate that national reconciliation. That's why Pakistan and now, all the neighbors of Afghanistan mm-hmm. Are with one voice suggesting to the leadership in Kabul that they should adopt a more inclusive. One is encouraged by their initial statements, and one is also encouraged to see that the later additions in the cabinet, there was a step in that direction. 3 new inductions that did come about. Tajiks got a representation. Uzbek representation was there, and there was a representation of the Hazara community. So that's a step in the right direction, but I think they should do more.
You talked about healing just now, and a big factor, of course, also economic. We look at the situation that's occurring right now in Afghanistan. Now, you recently stressed continued economic engagement with Afghanistan to avert the total collapse over mm-hmm. there. Do you intend to work with Iran on this, considering that these 2 countries are the most affected by instability from Afghanistan?
Most certainly. Iran is a friend. Iran is a neighbor of Afghanistan and Pakistan. Iran has been hosting millions of refugees, so have we. God forbid if things go wrong and there's a new influx of refugees, the 2 most impacted countries would be Pakistan and Iran. And one thing that will contribute to the exodus is the economic collapse. Now, if there is a humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, then that exodus that has not taken place, that dreaded exodus that has not taken place so far, will become inevitable. And Iran and Pakistan and all neighbors, Tajikistan and all others will be impacted by that. So we need to have a coordinated approach on that. We need to urge the international community, and that's what we did yesterday. If you look at the joint statement, that is what the joint statement says, that the international community should create an environment that the situation within Afghanistan is such that there is no need to leave, and that will happen if there is security and economic stability, economic security.
Well, Pakistan shares a long border, switching topics a little bit. Pakistan sharing a long border with Iran that has occasionally been the site of security incidents in recent years, mainly targeting Iranian forces. Now, terrorist groups have used it to create tension between the two countries. What is Pakistan doing to bolster border security?
To begin with, the terrorist incidents have taken place on both sides. There have been unfortunate incidents in Iranian side, and there have been unfortunate incidents on the Pakistani side. There are elements, there are spoilers. Spoilers that do not want to see this border between Pakistan and Iran to be a border of friendship and peace.
Right.
So they create such, incidents.
Who are these spoilers? You said they're spoilers. Who are these spoilers?
They're spoilers within Afghanistan and beyond, who do not want to see stability in the region, right? They do not want to see stability within Afghanistan. So they always try to create misunderstandings. But fortunately, Pakistan, in the last 3 years, since our government came into office, our bilateral relations with Iran have improved considerably. We have a mechanism in place now. We have structures in place through which we can coordinate, share intelligence, and adopt a joint strategy to deal with such incidents. And fortunately, they have gone down considerably. Pakistan has taken a number of steps that will further ensure a better border management, and that is fencing the border. Hopefully, by the end of this year, 2021, we would have fenced our border with Iran.
The whole thing?
The whole border, and that will make a huge difference.
Okay, well, Iran and Pakistan have recently agreed to work closely on, as you just said, counterterrorism and military training. How important is that, given the rapidly changing geopolitical dynamics of everything?
It is important. It is important because we are both interested in stabilizing the region. We both stand to gain if the region is stable and peaceful. And of late, our military contacts have been on the rise. We had the chief of defense services of Iran in Pakistan. He's had very good meetings with his counterparts over there. And our intelligence sharing has improved considerably. Pakistan has offered training and capacity building, and very soon the director of the naval training will be visiting Tehran to sign an agreement with the Iranian government to facilitate the training program.
Training of
people in the Navy.
Let's look at trade. And I mean, these are two neighboring countries that has such potential in enhancing trade between the two countries. Now, the two countries have signed this preferential trade agreement. Tell me the possibilities of what this may mean and what is being done to basically increase the volume of bilateral trade.
You've rightly pointed out that there's a huge potential of bilateral trade between Iran and Pakistan. What is impeding that? The biggest challenge that we are facing is lack of banking channels, and that's because of the sanctions. Now, we have to look at innovative ways of not violating the violations and the sanctions, not violating the sanctions and enhancing bilateral trade. For that, the next month, in November, the Commerce Minister of Pakistan would be visiting Iran with a delegation to look at the possibilities how, where we can enhance trade. Is barter trade